Unless you've been blessed by a unicorn, you've probably had at least one bad boss in your lifetime. The boss who didn't seem to care when you said you were under too much pressure, the one who really didn't want to help set the scope of the project, the one who lashed out and yelled or disappeared completely when you needed them most. And we know what happens when you have bad bosses. High turnover, missed deadlines, poor performance, toxic workplace. But now you're the boss, and maybe turnover is a little higher than you expected, or your team is missing more goals than they should, or you have people who show up but aren't, there. Have you considered that it's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me? Seriously though, when was the last time you asked yourself, am I a good boss or a bad boss? What are the signs you're creating a toxic environment? And if you've identified your red flag behavior, can you even fix it? Hi, I'm Mandi Gosling, the host of Manage This, a series for everyone playing manager in the middle. Each episode will help managers tackle everyday problems that seem to pop up when you're both leading a team and being managed in return. This episode is the Bad Bosses Recovery Guide, signs you're a red flag manager and what you can do about it. Let's start with some stats. A 2019 study found that 39% of employees quit a job because of a bad boss. A 2023 study found that 35% of employees say their biggest workplace source of stress is their direct manager. And considering managers are responsible for the overwhelming majority of employee engagement, it's not a great sign that another study estimates just 18% of managers demonstrated a high level of talent for managing people. All told, this is costing U.S. businesses more than $550 billion annually.
Bad bosses create a lot of collateral damage in the process. They may be helpful at achieving the organization's mission, but at such a high cost that they end up ultimately destroying the team or inflicting scars on the people with whom they've worked.
That's Glen Whyte, a professor of organizational behavior and HR at the Rotman School of Management, where he studies leadership and decision-making. In his view, a boss's primary objective is to create value for both the organization, but also for their team. A good boss is someone who is able to set goals that align with the company's mission and help employees grow and ultimately meet those goals. And as Glen says,
if you don't pay attention to what you're there for to achieve, you're very soon going to become irrelevant. You'll miss performance targets. There will be likely in the private sector financial consequences. You may well be out of business.
Let's start first with some very hard truths. Not everyone is cut out to be a manager, and the vast majority of people who are managers never receive any formal training.
And just because you're a top performer in a technical specialty doesn't mean as you get promoted and become a manager that you'll be as good as you were in the technical job.
This can actually lead to our first toxic managerial trait, micromanaging. People who are good at their previous jobs and are rewarded into managerial positions can struggle to let go of their old work lives. This isn't the only reason people micromanage, of course. You might have a lack of trust in your team's capabilities, or perhaps that's how you were always managed, which makes you more likely to be a micromanager yourself. What are the signs? Do you need to be eyes on every element of a project? Do you take over at the slightest sign of turbulence? Do you feel the need to be constantly updated and copied on every single email? Do you worry no one else is capable of doing the job right, so it's better if you just do it yourself? There are lots of ways micromanaging can present itself, but know that it very quickly erodes your employees' confidence.
It is a bad management behavior, guaranteed to annoy and to produce underperformance as opposed to high performance. It's certainly the inference that any employee draws from having a manager who micromanages is, number one, my boss thinks I'm both. My boss doesn't trust me, number one, and also number my boss thinks I'm incompetent.
On the flip side, you have the absentee boss. The one who can't or won't provide the resources the team needs, who isn't there to take calls, who doesn't offer support or remove blockers, and they tend to be the antithesis of what it even means to be a manager.
What's the point of a manager? What is the value that they bring? And one source of value is that their job is to ensure that their employees have the resources, time, money, budgets, materials, whatever those resources might be, to do the job effectively.
There's the credit stealer. Ask yourself, did you really do the work to deserve that credit?
If you want to get your team members thinking about their next role and moving on to a different job, just take credit for their good work. And similarly, blaming them when things go wrong.
Since part of your job as a manager is to equip your team with everything they need to succeed, if they fail, at least some of the blame lies with you. Did you do everything you could to make sure they were set up for success? If not, why place the blame solely on them? And of course, there's the manager who lashes out, the one who can't control their emotional reactions when things go wrong. No one wants to work for a boss who yells and loses their temper.
Emotional maturity is one hallmark of an effective manager. And if you struggle in that domain in terms of controlling your impulses and emotions, then maybe you think twice before you take on that role.
Now, these aren't the only signs of a bad boss. There are plenty of red flag behaviors you can exhibit. And if you were nodding along at any of these toxic traits, it might be time for a bit of self-reflection. Being honest with yourself won't be easy.
We have all these ego defense mechanisms that protect us from the sad reality of life if things don't go well and we've been responsible for them not going well. Most of us are immune to that type of feedback.
But there are signs you can look out for. First, how high is your turnover, really?
Are there disturbing levels of turnover? Turnover is not necessarily a bad thing, but ideally, the turnover occurs in your poor performers and does not occur with respect to your stars.
Remember, most employees won't tell you they're quitting because of your managerial style. They'll tell you they're leaving for growth opportunities, better pay, or personal reasons. So you have to look at things like, how does turnover on your team compare to other departments or competitors? Are people actually taking better, more senior jobs? Are they leaving their industries altogether because they're burnt out? Or are you seeing them thrive and quickly advance at other organizations? And if someone does tell you they're leaving because they clash with your style, that is a big red flag, and you should sit up and take notice. Glen suggests managers also take stock of how their remaining employees are doing.
Are they productive? Are they satisfied? Do they show up for work on a regular basis? Are they not just physically but mentally present?
Are they burning out? Were they consistently strong performers who are now turning in half-assed efforts? Have they stopped contributing? Are they getting better at their jobs?
But one hallmark of an effective team is not only do they perform well with respect to their assigned tasks, but they do this in such a way that their ability to perform well actually gets better over time.
And of course, do you as a manager shy away from feedback? Be honest here. When was the last time you actually asked yourself how things were going?
One precondition for getting better at anything is that you receive timely and accurate feedback of quality performance.
Getting feedback from a boss or fellow manager might not be too difficult, but hearing what your team thinks of you might be a challenge, since it's not exactly in your employees' best interest to be brutally honest, especially if you haven't created a culture where they feel they can be.
One of the first casualties of bad managers is the truth. You get people telling management what they think management wants to hear as opposed to what they actually should be hearing.
Now, if you're thinking, oh crap, I am a bad manager, don't despair too much. After all, the first step to recovery is admitting there's a problem. But next, you have to get that feedback.
A good manager is not only, though, seek feedback from those who work with them directly as a member of their team, they also seek feedback from their peers. They seek advice. They also seek feedback from those who are above them in the org chart, to whom they report. Am I doing a good job? What do you think? To ensure that there are regular meetings by which the person can receive timely and accurate feedback about how they're doing, and also advice about how to do things better. Even if they're doing things well, we can always do things better. So how might that take place?
It also means figuring out how to get real feedback from your team. which Glen suggests being done anonymously to better ensure accuracy and honesty.
You also have to show them that you're listening to it, that if they do tell you that, on balance, it would be probably better if you did less of this and more of that. And people will watch to see if you pay attention to that feedback. And if you ignore it, why would they ever give you quality feedback again? Doesn't mean you have to do everything that they say, but I think at a minimum you have to demonstrate that you have thought carefully about doing what they have advised.
Also, consider formal training programs that help address some of your failings. Struggling to manage your emotional outbursts? Well, maybe look at some training that helps you understand and process your feelings. Hearing you're bad at helping your team get the resources they need from senior leadership? Look into some negotiation courses. Finding that your communication style isn't meshing with some of your employees? Well, there are books you can read to help you understand and adopt different styles. Also, consider finding a mentor or a role model.
I think a good question is, what type of manager do I aspire to be? What are the outcomes that generally I as a manager would like to be achieving, or what kind of environment I want to create, or what kind of culture, or what kind of processes? Do you have a managerial role model? If you don't, I think it can be helpful to have one as kind of a beacon of light to help guide you as you make decisions about how you evolve in your own career.
And if you're still struggling, maybe it's time to recognize the fit. The industry, the job, the company, it just isn't quite right.
So it's not so much a matter of, a leopard changing its spots. That would be impossible. So to put yourself in a situation that, despite all the evolution and revolution and changes you ensure that you engage in, you're never going to get there, then you should be thinking about a different environment where your skills are better suited. So that means managing your career, and guess who's responsible for that? That's you and no one else. It's not about becoming someone who you are not. It's more about understanding what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your interests are, and seeking out environments that provide a wonderful fit for your capacities and your interests and the direction in which you'd like to ensure that you progress in as a manager.
So are you a bad manager or a good manager? What areas do you think you can improve upon the most? And what other topics should we consider exploring in future episodes? Chime in the comments below and consider subscribing to this series, our whole YouTube channel, or the Rotman Insights Hub. Just click the link in the description to get more thought leadership and research-backed management tips from the Rotman community delivered to your inbox every other week. Thanks for tuning in.